All right, welcome back to another UFO show. This is the JoJo and Joe show from the Two Joes podcasting studio. I'm joined today by my lovely co-host, JoJo.
Good morning. Hope you're doing well today. This is one of our favorite episodes of the Basement Office. It has a very interesting theory that it explores, which I think we're going to have a lot of fun with today. So let's do it.
Yeah, I'm excited to show JoJo this because UFOs go way back to World War II days, and this theory posits that the Nazis knew something about UFOs or were trying to craft something that resembles UFOs. So let's check it out and see if they're like Steve says here, is there any truth to this theory?
You know, I hate to bring this up right now, but here's what just popped into my mind. I'm sure all of you have seen Raiders of the Lost Ark, and if you're young enough that you have not seen it, you need to see it. It's so good. Anyway, in that one, it posits that the Nazis were actually looking for the Ark of the Covenant. So here we go. That's what this reminded me of.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
The Nazis were into all sorts of weird stuff.
They were.
That is the truth. It's the historical truth.
Wait till you see this. Okay, here we go. Nazi UFOs? Question mark?
There are a lot of theories about what UFOs are and where they come from. Some say they come from another galaxy. Others say another dimension. In this episode, we will dive into one theory that says UFOs came from Europe, in Germany, and were built by the Nazis. Is there any truth to this crazy theory? Let's find out. Welcome to the Basement Office.
Where's this cohort?
Yeah, I didn't see Nick there.
Yeah, we're missing Nick already.
Yeah, I know. I think he'll show up.
One of the urban legends,
there he is.
folklore, conspiracy theories that doesn't die is that UFOs, flying saucers, have an origin in Nazi Germany. Now, I'm hoping in this episode to compare the rumors with the facts of what we know so that we can dismiss some of the outlandish stuff. We should start with World War II itself and the Foo Fighters.
Can we pause it right here?
What were the Foo Fighters?
One thing I want to point out is, like, when I heard that recording of Sieg Heil, you know, of all the people, all the soldiers, that gave me the chills. That gave me the exact feeling, which we've been talking about, the lizard brain, that happens when you encounter something that brings you into a fight or flight fear response. And obviously, hearing them say that totally did that to me. So, you know, if you're out there listening, just realize this one's going to be a double whammy, because not only are we hitting the Nazi button, which, you know, should
put for a lot of
fear
people.
into anybody, after everything that they did. But also we're talking about UFOs, which also stimulate the lizard brain. So just realize if you're feeling a little bit of heightened anxiety right now, that's why. And keep listening.
That's a good point.
It's not a problem.
That's a good point. Yeah, and
it's just a lizard brain response.
Yeah, and I forgot to kind of open the show with what we're doing here is we're going through the Basement Office episodes. It's a show on YouTube put on by the New York Post. So we're on episode 9 if you want to follow along at home. I'll have the link in the description below.
Well, I think we should also introduce, we have a guest star today.
Yes, we have an addition in the studio today.
Who may or may not be saying anything.
She probably won't say anything, but her name is Honey Joe. She is on my lap right now, curled up. And, yeah, we'll see if she has anything to add.
She's a long-haired tortie. She's the cutest thing ever. And I could make her meow, but Main Joe over there has too soft of a heart.
All right. So you ready, Honey Joe? She looks ready. You ready, JoJo?
Yeah, her ear is peaked.
Let's get back to the show here. Foo Fighters.
The Foo Fighters were predominantly balls of light seen by pilots during the war, and one can say that perhaps the roots of the modern UFO phenomenon actually lie in the Foo Fighter mystery. They were seen, interestingly, by both sides. So Royal Air Force officers frequently reported these strange balls of light, small objects, and they said that they tracked the planes, flew alongside them, extraordinary speeds and maneuvers. And the initial suspicion was this must be some sort of Nazi secret weapon. But then they showed no hostile action, which was kind of odd. And then after the war, it transpired that German and Japanese pilots had seen the same thing and had made the opposite assumption. Well, it must be some sort of allied secret weapon. So everyone was seeing these things, and we see, I mean, there is a classic photograph of these Foo Fighters, and so everyone has the perception that they are balls of light. But I've seen some of the Ministry of Defense files on this from Bomber Command, and one of them in particular talks about an object, I mean huge, maybe 200 feet in diameter more. We're talking not about balls of light, but suddenly about structured, metallic-looking craft.
So, a war is being fought. Strange lights and craft are flying alongside our airplanes, Allied airplanes, following them around, unidentified, not responding to radio. They're picked up on radar. So rumors start. This must be the enemy. This could be the Nazis. What is this? Was there ever a determination, in your experience, in the Ministry of Defense, as to the best determination of what these were?
No, I've seen the files. It was a complete mystery. And that being the case, there was almost a conspiracy of silence. The senior Air Force officers took the view that we don't know what these things are, but we don't want to create rumor and panic, so best try and put a lid on the whole thing and just don't.
That seems to be their excuse for everything. We don't want to create rumor and panic because there's something flying around that's not hostile, but we can't explain and we can't catch it. We don't know what it is.
Well, yeah, our governments and the powers that be like to be in control. If it's something they don't understand, they can't be in control of it.
And they just think we're going to run around with our hair on fire, freaking out, digging bunkers, loading up shotguns.
It's all about controlling us.
Or when did War of the Worlds happen, that whole thing? Because that's kind of what happened. People panicked. People freaked out, right?
Was it 1986, I think?
No, it was much, much earlier than that.
Well, no, but when the world was supposed to end.
No. I'm talking about the radio show that they put on back in the 30s, maybe 40s, and people thought it was real.
Oh,
and it was about
yes.
Martians invading, essentially.
Yes, I'm
War
recalling
of the Worlds,
that. Yes.
And they even made a movie about it or something like that.
Yeah, it's a very good book. Yeah.
Oh, it's a book too.
Yeah,
okay.
so they were, in other words, they were airing the reading of it.
Yeah.
And people who
heard
were
the radio
stupid
show
and had never read the book.
Panicked, freaked
out. But you know what? I need to tell the personal story here because I can understand why they panicked and freaked out.
Okay.
It's kind of the opposite for me, though. So it was on my birthday a while ago, and I got up early. I had the day off. I was going to go rollerblading. My significant other here was sleeping in as usual. And I got in my car, and I turned it on, and the radio was already on. And I'm hearing this story of these planes that are hitting these buildings. And then they start talking about the World Trade Center in New York. And I'm like, what kind of a story is this? So I changed the channel, and it was the same thing. And I was halfway out of the garage when I realized that it wasn't a story. So I can understand why you get this mass panic. So what I did was I ran in the house. I turned on the TV. They were showing pictures of the first plane. This was before the second plane hit. Mm-hmm. It was,
yeah, I remember that morning
early in the morning. Yeah. I woke you up.
No, you did. I was already up. I was downstairs working. I remember that day, clear as day.
Okay, you were downstairs working.
I thought you would, because you had just left and then you came right back. I thought you had just wrecked your new car or something. I was like, oh shit, here we go. New car, she's got a dent in it already.
But anyway, that's valid. Those people who panicked, I can see why it's valid, especially back then where they couldn't just go turn on the TV.
Yeah.
So, and obviously that was before the first thing we would do is go to the internet now.
Yeah, so maybe this government excuse that, it's going to cause panic, we got to put the kibosh on it
It's
right now.
a real thing.
It's probably a real thing.
Yeah.
I don't get it, but
It's
maybe
not.
I'm not prone to panic, or maybe I haven't been put in the situation yet.
Well, and here's the thing. Okay, it's not like I'm agreeing with their policies here. Okay, I'm just saying this is the motivation behind them.
And in this case, there's a war on, and the people are already freaked out enough probably. So,
Yes.
don't want to add to that.
Well, honesty, in my opinion, is usually the best policy. But let's keep watching.
All right, let's see what they say here.
Don't talk about it. And it was really only in later years when the US and the UK government started their UFO programs that people looked back at the Foo Fighters and said, well, wait, this was the start of it, maybe.
So while there's no evidence that these Foo Fighters, these balls of light specifically, were Nazi technology, there is an abundance of evidence that...
Look at these headlines. They're fascinating, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, this one says, Nazis send fireballs at planes. German Foo Fighters chase American planes. U.S. airmen encounter Nazi mystery weapon.
Yeah, but why? Do you know the story as to why they call them the Foo Fighters? Because to me, that's a funny name.
I think they might
They're going
mention
to explain it.
Yeah.
So it's the latest Nazi mystery weapon, which actually has never attacked a plane. Am I understanding this correctly?
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Again, the media likes to get the clicks. They like to get the eyeballs. They do the sensational, right? Nazis send fireballs at planes. That's not true.
German Foo Fighters
it's more
chase
sensationalized.
American planes.
Or they followed, or they flew side by side in harmony.
So didn't we have
send fireballs at planes?
Okay, so correct me if I'm not recalling this correctly, but there was one situation in World War II where a bomb disappeared after some of these mysterious objects were around.
No, I think you're stretching. You're reaching for some story that you heard and you can't quite grab it, maybe?
It was in one of our earlier podcasts. Well, we'll figure that out later. Let's keep listening because this is good.
Nazi Germany had technological advances that the United States wanted to get their hands on. Nearly immediately after World War II, we have something called Operation Paperclip. Operation Paperclip was essentially the U.S. government reaching out to Nazi scientists, engineers, literal rocket scientists, and saying, instead of prosecuting you for war crimes, and instead of prosecuting you for your involvement in the SS and the Nazi Party, we're going to hire you and bring you to the United States secretly. And the U.S. military, the government, wanted something that these scientists in Nazi Germany had. What did they have?
Well, they had a lot. They had technology that in many ways was better than anything we had. The V1, the V2 in particular, essentially the world's first ballistic missile. This was something that we had not developed. The Me-262 was the world's first operational jet fighter. So in many areas, Nazi technology, particularly in terms of aircraft and missiles, was way ahead of anything we had. And the only thing that stopped them really using this as a game changer and winning the war was the fact that much of this was developed too late to be built in any sufficient numbers, and by that time the 1,000 bomber raids were flattening the production facilities. But they had that knowledge and they had that technological know-how that we didn't have. So of course, most famously, Werner von Braun was brought over and literally, this isn't conspiracy, as you say, this is documented and proven. The V2 rocket evolved essentially into the Apollo space missions, and it's the same technology.
And if you understand, Paperclip, the Russians also wanted in. They wanted those same scientists. There was like a tug of war
And the Brits. And let's not forget the British. We had something called the T forces, and the T stood for technology. These were units of scientists and engineers who traveled immediately behind the front line, and as these various Nazi airfields and production facilities were captured, they would get their hands on the technology and ship it back to the UK. But yeah, everyone was at it.
They were fighting both, above ground and then also incognito, behind the scenes, fighting over who gets the corner market on the tech that these German scientists had. So
I'm going to pause it there. We've talked a lot about tech and how that's one of the reasons they're keeping the lid on this UFO stuff. Everybody wants that tech because it's a game changer. If anybody can figure out how those UFOs go from 0 to 20,000 miles an hour in a second, change directions in a second, withstand those G-forces, game changer, you know? And so here is a good example of everyone scrambling for this technology. The Germans had rockets, which they used against England to bomb them with. They weren't very accurate, but again, they're pilotless, so you can't, you can shoot them down if you're lucky enough, but really it's hard to defend against missiles, right? And now,
especially back then.
And then they also had the first working jet engine airplane. And I remember that they came a little bit too late in the war, but they did have a couple that they had produced, and these pilots are sitting there cruising, the Allied pilots are cruising in their propeller planes, and here comes this jet by them. But they didn't confuse it with a Foo Fighter. It was a jet. They knew it was a human-made thing coming by them and going way faster than they could go. So it's really interesting how close it seems like to me the Germans came to winning the war. I mean, they were close.
Well, yeah, if it wasn't for the atomic bomb, they would have won, let's face it.
Perhaps, yeah. I mean, if we went to come up with that bomb and they got their jet planes in production and cranking them out and they're perfected their missiles,
we would have a world that is a lot less diverse right now then. In that case. They probably would have killed off everybody they wanted to. Mass genocide.
It would have been ugly.
Yeah.
Anyway, the reason I brought it up is to just talk about the tech and the scramble for tech. Yeah.
Well, and in that scramble for tech, did they ever discover what the Foo Fighters were? Let's find that out.
Okay, back to the show.
Let's talk about the rumors now. The rumors that exist still to today are that what the United States and Russia really wanted were these, I don't speak German, Wunderwaffe.
Wunderwaffe or Wunderwaffe.
Miracle
weapons.
Right. So conspiracy theorists have created sketches and drawings about these rumors, these rumored Wunderwaffe, these crazy, insane miracle weapons that Nazi Germany supposedly had. And this is a sketch that somebody has made, perhaps a science fiction fan. This is what people claim Hitler was developing, flying disc objects. This is another rumored, unsubstantiated craft called the Bell, the Nazi Bell.
Die Glock.
Die Glock. But on top of that, there are actual toys. You could go on Amazon and buy a Die Glock toy if your kid wants one for Christmas. And in fact, a toy store got in trouble. It made headlines, I think, a year or two ago, where they were selling Nazi UFOs on their toy shelves, and there were some complaints about what the heck is this that you're selling to our kids. So these are all
that's
right?
good.
There's
Capitalism is at its
photographic
best.
evidence of this, but to move on to what we do have, we have declassified CIA, post-war CIA, declassified post-war FBI documents, literally talking, in the CIA's case, talking about, quote, flying saucers of Germany. German engineers talking about how they worked on flying saucers. Two men in East Germany are seen in metallic clothing jump into a flying saucer and fly away in East Germany. These are actual government intelligence documents. This is an intelligence report. German engineer says the Soviets have obtained the Nazi UFO plans. An FBI report post-war in the 50s. Prisoner of war talking about circular aircraft rising out of German facility during World War II. So there are documents that exist that reference flying saucers, circular craft, flying craft without wings, traditional wings, being engineered, built, operable, flying in Nazi Germany.
Absolutely, some of this is documented. And another good example, I think, of something that is real, and verifiably so, is the Horton brothers, the so-called flying wing.
Right. The Flying Wing was a Nazi bomber that was unlike anything the world had ever seen at that point. It was this weird, boomerang-shaped aircraft powered by jet engines. It was designed for bombing runs. It was tested throughout World War II. But it never...
So, do you remember that one show we watched of the Basement Office where they were talking about the very first sighting up in Washington, where this private pilot said he saw these boomerang-shaped things kind of wobbling through the air?
And that was in the 50s.
And that's where the term flying saucer came from. It was a misnomer as to how these things were flying, not their shape.
So
right?
what
So-
year was that?
That, I believe that was after the war. And so
Okay.
my theory was that, we got a bunch of these things and they were trying to fly them, and that's what the pilots saw.
Okay. It does look like that if you're not close up to it. But if you get very close to it, it's obvious that it's man-made.
But you can even see how it's flying. It's flying kind of awkwardly because these things are notoriously tough to fly, from what I understand.
Well, and they've got human numbers on them, and, that ought to be obvious.
That's true. That private
Maybe
pilot
not
never
at
said
night.
that he saw any numbers on them.
Did he see them at night or during the day?
I'm pretty sure it was during the day. But
Yeah. Well, this one has
Anyway,
numbers on
interesting,
it.
though, huh? That's
Never became
That's our
fully
B-2 bomber,
active.
essentially.
Yeah.
They never actually flew this thing.
It looks very
during
small,
the war.
though.
But it was one of the top things that the Americans wanted to acquire through Operation Paperclip.
And if you look at some of the pictures of that, it doesn't look too dissimilar from, say, a modern B-2 stealth bomber. So again, the Nazis were definitely working on a lot of this. The real question is, where is the line between things that they were absolutely working on and trying to build and saying, would this design be a game changer, and things that they were actually able to build, and not just build as a prototype, but become operational. But it's an interesting point about the Second World War. There's a school of thought from historians that says the reason the war went on so long is they did have faith in these so-called wonder weapons. And then, of course, when Hitler pulled out the V1 and the V2, people said yes. And obviously felt that there was more to come and there would be a game changer. And now whether that is something like the Flying Wing, the Horton brothers, whether it's something like Die Glock, the Nazi bell, I don't know. But then you have something like the Nazi bell, and just when you write that off as just another one of those urban myths and tall tales, along comes something like Kecksburg.
Right.
And it kind of flips the narrative and makes you think, well, wait a minute, maybe there is something to that.
So Kecksburg, Pennsylvania, in December 1965, multiple witnesses observe a object crash out of the sky into a wooded area. The military shows up, federal representatives show up, army ropes off the area. I mean, they lock the town down. And I spoke with a first-hand
interesting.
witness to the crash at Kecksburg. Let's cut to that. You were a witness to the Kecksburg event.
I was.
What did you see?
Well, we first heard it on the radio and TV, and then we seen the streak in the sky from where we was in Greensburg. There's an orange streak in the sky. So whenever it come on the radio, they kept saying welding time, where it went down. So the wife and I went out to what is now Meteor Road, and that's where we seen the military.
Okay, so you see something streak through the sky. What did it look like?
If you've seen a jet rooster tail, if you ever seen something like that, that's exactly, what it looked like. Only it wasn't as big, but it was an orange streak in the sky.
So you see the streak in the sky, you hear over the radio it's crashed in this particular area, you drive there, and by the time you get there, the military's already there?
That's correct. You know, you can make that trip in 14 or 15 minutes easy. And by the time we got there, you know, they had the roads blocked off and they wouldn't let us, you know, down in.
What were they doing there?
Well, they were walking through that area looking for something.
Did anybody see, any of the townsfolk see the military extract an object, leave with an object, anything like that?
Yes, there was people that had cabins up on the mountain. And they come down into Kecksburg after hearing it on the radio. And when they got in town, they seen the military, plus they seen this object coming down through Kecksburg on a flatbed.
Covered up?
It was tarped.
Do you know of anyone who actually saw what crashed?
Most of those people right now are deceased. And most of them went to their deathbed stating that something did happen and something come down in the woods of Kecksburg.
What did they see?
Well, they see, the one guy claims that he was there and he seen a metallic object that was shaped like an acorn. It was goldish color, bronzish color, and it was round like an acorn that had a rim around the bottom.
What kind of size?
Most of the people that seen it said it looked like the size of a Volkswagen.
Now, tell me about the object.
Well,
So I'm going to pause it there. This is a long time after World War II. This is 1965. But it's interesting to me how very quickly the military got there. I mean, they knew this thing was coming down, it seems like to me. And also, you know, it was right in the middle of the space race where we're trying to get to the moon.
This is true. So this was 1960? Oh, 1965.
the
Okay.
year, yeah.
Wow. So it was one of
interesting.
ours. I mean, you know, that's the supposition I would make after hearing that.
Absolutely, me too. Has to
Otherwise, how could they have gotten there that
be. Yeah.
fast?
it looked, from the sketches that we have from eyewitnesses, uncannily like the Nazi bell.
It looks exactly like the Nazi bell.
Spookily. And now, there were essentially three theories doing the rounds. Theory number one is that this was a meteorite. This was kind of a meteorite. Maybe it actually crashed to Earth, fireball meteor, something like that. Theory number two was that this was a downed Soviet satellite. And theory number three is that it was, I guess, a literal UFO, but perhaps a UFO that was Nazi in origin because of this similarity with the bell.
And that's the rumor part, you know, because there is such mystery behind, you know, paperclip, etc., that people tend to just start filling in those gaps with whatever they come up with. But I think there's a more probable explanation. Something man-made.
Theory 4.
And something that does look like an acorn.
Mm-hmm.
What do you personally believe happened at Kecksburg that night?
Well, I'm not one that I don't believe that it was little green aliens or anything like that, but I you know, with all the information I've seen, I've had, you know, I believe that it could be something that our government doesn't want us to know, because if you remember back then, we was behind in the space race.
To be sure, we are behind.
During that time period, Kennedy vowed that we would not be behind.
But we do not intend to stay behind, and in this decade, we shall make up and move ahead.
Which
So
we did.
I don't know. You know, it's something that I believe is man-made, and whatever it was, they took it out of here.
You're familiar with, I mean, in 68, 69, the Apollo Lunar Reentry Module?
Yes, and if you look at that, and what did we put in the ocean with a parachute? If you look at that object, what does it look like?
An acorn.
Correct. And that's the backbone of my theory that I think that it could be something of ours that they lost control of. It dropped in Kecksburg.
So do you think a crashed lunar reentry module could explain Kecksburg?
I like
Sure,
that theory.
it's possible. The space race was on at the time. NASA was experimenting with these vehicles, including the lunar re-entry vehicle, and there's no getting away from the fact that it does look similar.
You would think if that was the case, this was a NASA lunar reentry module, you would think 55 years later there would be documents that were released to the public explaining this. They'd
Especially
be fine
now.
Yeah, another good
decades
point.
later saying, yeah, that's what it was. This happened. We were experimenting and this happened. So tell me about the paper trail when it comes to finding out what this was.
Investigative journalist Leslie Kane went after some of the documents about this. She had some fairly important political heavyweight backing to that initiative, and they went after, using Freedom of Information Act, NASA files, and NASA turned around and said, "Oh, we've lost a lot of the paperwork on that."
Oops.
Jeez.
Yeah, time and time
Lame.
again, whatever you're dealing with this phenomenon, the logbooks get blown overboard, radar tapes get confiscated, documents get lost. There's a kind of pattern here.
All right, so I want to move on to other things that we know about rumors versus fact when it comes
Okay,
to
can we pause it here?
Their technology.
He's moving up.
Okay, so your theory then now after hearing this is that that particular acorn-shaped craft that fell in that town was...
Yeah, so here, I think, let's just try this theory on for size. I'm thinking maybe the Nazis were working on something like that. Now, why the Nazis were working on UFO-shaped craft is beyond, that's a whole nother thing. But let's say they were. So we see this Bell thing, we get a hold of one, we get their engineers, their scientists, we have them help us with our space program. They fall back on their designs that they've been working on. And one of them is this Bell type thing. And they say, hey, let's use it for our re-entry vehicle for our space program. One of them gets away from them, lands in Kecksburg. They're on top of it. They get it out of there. And that's that.
And they're keeping it secret because of the space race.
Yeah. I think that's my working theory for now.
Okay. Okay, I like it. Because this one didn't behave like any of the others. There was no up and down movement that you can't explain, sideways in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
It just fell out of the sky and
if-
crashed.
And if that
Crash
was a
and burn.
meteor the size of a VW hitting the Earth, it would have hit it at speed. It would have been an explosion, man. It would have been some crash. I mean, it would have been
Yeah.
it would have been a bigger deal. I think
would have
it would
left-
have left a crater.
Yeah, exactly. Is there a crater?
No.
And yet
that I know.
they renamed it Meteor Road. I
Yeah.
think that's just
Isn't that funny?
hilarious.
That's so funny.
No, I like your theory. I would tend to
The only
agree.
thing I don't like about my theory is that there's no real evidence that the Nazis were working on UFOs or this bell-shaped thing. They're just rumors.
Yeah, but
right?
that's because the paperwork always gets lost.
Yeah. But there are those official government documents, FBI reports and others, that have people in Germany saying we saw this circular craft rise up vertically, blah, blah, blah.
Well.
Maybe they were working on them and we just don't have any concrete evidence, or maybe the evidence was all just hushed and whisked away to a hangar somewhere in New Mexico.
Or perhaps the aliens themselves made it disappear.
Just sucked it back into the other dimension. the
Exactly.
Fifth dimension.
Exactly. Okay, let's keep going.
Okay, so yeah, I think the rest of this show kind of just rumors and speculation, but it's kind of fascinating.
And their ambitions with regards to rumors around UFOs. So in 1938, Hitler sent an expedition to Antarctica, and there was a unofficial kind of claiming of New Swabia, they called. Now, we know that happened. The rumors about what happened after that expedition, Nazi expedition in 1938, are all over the place. And so I think it's good for us to focus on what we know versus what is rumored.
Well, the expedition absolutely happened. I mean, that is documented historical fact. I think there were two stated reasons for it. The first, of course, was geopolitics. The Nazis wanted to show that in every field they were just as dominant and influential as any other nation on Earth, if not more so. So, of course, when it came to things like territorial claims in Antarctica, they wanted to be in that game. So, geopolitics is certainly part of it. Another part of it is resources. I mean, many people in Nazi Germany knew or suspected that war was coming. So, the question of what resources there might be in Antarctica, and indeed, and this is what I think gets us into some of the rumors, but the possibility of military bases down there must have been something in their minds.
The ability to have a base to launch weapons, missiles, planes, boats from at that position. They were, I guess, surveying to see the pros and cons of constructing a possible military
feasibility
base here
study
in what they called, the Germans called New Swabia. Now, the rumors say that yes, they built a base, a military base, a strong-armed military base, that these Wunderwaffes that were mentioned, the Bell, whatever, the saucers that are referenced in the CIA documents, that this was a staging ground, and that they were flying saucers over Antarctica and staging their wonder weapons out of Antarctica. That's the that is indeed the rumor. Now, there is little to no fact that beyond that first expedition, 1938, 1939, they had any real presence in Antarctica. But there is a CIA document talking about flying saucers over Antarctica.
Now, of course, just because something is in a CIA document doesn't make it true. Many of these documents are just recording things that they have heard from others.
Digestion of information, digestion of anecdotes that they've heard. Exactly.
Yes, and of course people forget their history, but after the Second World War, there was even uncertainty about the fate of Hitler. Some people thought that in those dying days of the Second World War, Hitler had somehow escaped, maybe to South America and even Antarctica. So you get these kind of linkages that Nazis, UFOs, Antarctica. I think a lot of it is far-fetched, but as with all of this, there is a kernel of truth to some of this.
Right. What we know, what is documented, what is fact, is this one expedition. And you would think that if the Nazis had any kind of military presence in Antarctica, that the Allies would have addressed that. And they have found that out and addressed that. It turns out that in 1946, 1 year after the end of World War II, Operation High Jump, which was over 4,000 military personnel, multiple ships, the United States sends to Antarctica for officially in what it seems to be a training exercise to test taking planes on and off of ice, and to see it was a testing ground for them. Many people have connected that large military presence in 1946 of sending the United States to Antarctica as, oh, they were going after the Nazi base. They were going to shut it down to attack them. And there are rumors of interacting with these Nazi weapons and flying saucers, and there's actually a controversial quote in a newspaper in 1947 where Admiral Richard Byrd was the admiral in charge of Operation High Jump. Admiral Byrd was interviewed during Operation High Jump, and the interview appeared in a March 5, 1947 edition of the Chilean newspaper called El Mercurio. The quote from him says this: Admiral Byrd declared today that it was imperative for the United States to initiate immediate defense measures against hostile regions. The Admiral further stated that he didn't want to frighten anyone unduly, but that it was a bitter reality that in case of a new war, the continental United States would be attacked by flying objects which could fly from pole to pole at incredible speeds. And of course, conspiracy theorists have latched on to that as this ultimate proof that what Byrd is referencing are UFOs, flying saucers of Nazi origin, zipping around the world and, imminently attacking the United States of America. But because the article is written in another language, another translation of what he said is this.
Oh, interesting.
Quote, the Admiral explained that he was not trying to scare anyone, but the cruel reality is that in case of a new war, the United States could be attacked by planes flying over one or both poles. Meaning, quite obviously, our enemies, Russia, China, if they had presence in the poles, could easily, closely attack the United States and its interests from a more geographical location. Is that how you interpret the Byrd statement?
Yes, I mean, I think, as you say, at one level, High Jump was more about geopolitics and more about using the Antarctic to maybe prepare for the sort of Arctic warfare that some US military planners thought that they might face with the Soviet Union. But, yes, there is no getting away from the fact that there is this minority report opinion, whatever you call it, that this was about going after something there, maybe some Nazi base that had survived, maybe some of the people and the U-boats and other technology had gotten away. And there are also rumors that link this with UFOs and with the suspicion that there's something down there, that they found something or they were going after something.
It's obvious that a lot of exaggeration has occurred on all of this. So the Nazis, flying saucers, people, like you said, they see flying saucer in a CIA document, they're like, there it is.
Even the base itself, they're talking about the Nazis trying to set up a base or something, seems to be nothing but a rumor, really. I mean, well, they named it and everything, but there's no facility down there. There's nothing permanent down there.
And we didn't install anything permanent down there either, did we?
No, and it's not like there was any battle down there. I mean, some of these rumors and these artist renderings of these rumors are quite impressive, but they're just stories.
Well, and they just kind of make me want to yawn. It's like, okay, one after another,
So this episode, I think, is basically a warning to say, look how these rumors can get blown out of proportion, just super exaggerated. And like you were saying when you were teaching us about guarding against fake news, consider the source, who else is reporting on it, examine the evidence, develop this critical mindset of thinking about these things.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can dampen the rumor mill a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and it's obvious that after the war, everyone took a great interest in figuring out exactly what the Nazis had that was ahead of us technology-wise, as did the Russians, as did the English, as he pointed out.
Yeah.
And nothing came of it. I mean, okay, we have that what's it called? B-2 bomber?
Yeah.
Which is cool. That came out of it, and so did the re-entry capsule.
More than just that. The rocket itself.
The rockets, yeah. So we got the technology.
Yeah.
If we had the technology for these things to zip, and they're huge, that's a different story. This story of this little thing that happened to be sort of acorn or bell-shaped crashing in that little town, that's definitely a military thing that, that's what I think when I apply critical thinking to it. That has absolutely nothing to do with UFOs because it's identified in my mind. It was a military test that crashed.
There you go.
And that's truly actually what I believe after looking at the facts. So I think this whole episode is just kind of like...
Yawn.
Well...
I can understand that, but I'm saying look at it like a warning. Or like, look at these rumors and how crazy they can get. And look how good these artist renderings are.
Well, the thing is that the rumor thing is like a smokescreen for the truth.
A diversion.
And we're just so as the populace, you know, I mean, I hate to refer to us as a bunch of cattle, but, you know, a lot of us are. We just are in reaction all the time. We're letting those lizard brains run our lives, and we don't want to know that there's stuff out there that the people in the government who are supposed to protect us do not understand. That is a scary thought.
Yeah.
And most people are going to either go one way or the other with it. They're going to become conspiracy theorists and have all these weird rumors and blah, 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 or they're going to say nothing like that exists, when the truth is somewhere in the middle.
Good point.
And
Good point.
it's important to stand in that place of not knowing, because there still is no conclusive proof.
I hear you. Yeah, that's a good point. Good point.
No conclusive proof that I've ever seen.
Nope.
Other
That's what I'm looking
than
for.
my own experiences, which are a whole other matter, which I can't prove. Again,
Yeah.
absolutely cannot prove, because I don't have proof.
All right, so let's go back to the show, and I think they're getting fairly close to wrapping it up. It looks like we have about 6 minutes left.
There's the ultimate truth, and you know it's not necessarily the case. And so, but I want to reemphasize that none of the rumors has been proven true when it comes to all this crazy stuff with Antarctica, Nazi presence there, flying saucers, etc. Ultimately, Antarctica to this day is a mystery. That is a safe thing to say, that there is a lot of undiscovered things both above and underneath the ice in Antarctica, and because of that, rumors still exist to this day. On Google Earth, conspiracy theorists are scouring the South Pole inch by inch, looking for any evidence of a Nazi base.
I've
UFOs,
seen some of this on YouTube.
Anything
Cool.
strange. Here are some examples of what armchair detectives have found. So on Google Earth, they saw this. They say this looks like some sort of craft that has crashed and slid across the ice and snow. The size is estimated to be between 100 and 100 feet long. Conspiracy theorists say, is this a crashed Nazi miracle weapon that's been there this whole time? But the truth is that it simply could just be a large rock, a piece of ice, even though the crash or whatever.
Why don't they
It
send
looks
a
like-
drone there to check it
It
out?
looks like it stems from that avalanche. Thing.
Yeah.
They say this mountain here looks strangely like a pyramid, a four-sided pyramid, just
It does.
like the Egyptian pyramids. Is it a pyramid? If so, who built it? But in reality, it's probably just a mountain, nothing more. This cave, conspiracy theorists say, looks like a man-made entrance to perhaps an underground base. A Nazi base?
Cool.
Claim this blurry object here is a flying saucer. Is this a Nazi Wunderwaffe?
That
And
does
then
look
there's
weird.
this. People say that this is a giant alien face engraved into snow and ice. And you know
That's
what?
pretty cool looking. But come
This
on.
actually looks like a giant alien's face.
It does. I love looking at faces in rocks,
Oh
too.
yeah, I see them everywhere.
But in reality, it's probably just a trick of light
Yep,
and shadow,
exactly.
the angle of the sun hitting the rocks and ice at a specific angle. But that
We'll
looks like
find
an
out,
alien's
because the
face.
ice is melting.
Skeptics would say it's
Global
it's a
warming.
classic pareidolia, where you get these, the human mind finds
Yeah.
the pattern.
Yes, I
order,
completely agree.
chaos. And
There was a time in my life where I'd go down to southern Utah and hike amongst the rocks and the hoodoos and all that stuff, and that's what I would do, is I would take pictures of faces and rocks. That was kind
I
of like my
love
hobby.
to do that. Yeah.
I made a whole picture frame full of pictures of faces and rocks. It's
It is fun.
yeah, it's so what we do.
you know, you have whole websites. Like
Oh, piece of
showing
toast.
faces,
Kai, got it.
yeah,
plugs,
exactly. I always
Yeah.
thought that
faces,
looked like a face.
and all sorts of things.
Why do you think babies are attracted to plugs?
Ah,
They
yeah.
think it's a face.
Good point.
Right, our brains tend to put together shapes and shadows.
We wanna
and
find
see
those
things we're
patterns.
familiar with, or perhaps want to see. Our brain puts those pieces together. Correct?
Exactly,
Yeah.
but there's no getting away from the fact that that is a darn good one, if that's what it is. It's creepy. It really
Agreed, it's
Well,
darn good.
it will
It is
thaw
indeed
if that's what it is. We just have to
Or
wait.
without
Or if you just look at it
without
from a different
context
angle,
or
it changes
proper
everything.
Forensic scientific research. All of this is just a conspiracy theory. All of this really has to be taken with a grain of salt. And And I get it's fun. It's fun to entertain sometimes a conspiracy theory. It's fun to think maybe the Nazis had like a crazy, alien underground base in
Fun like watching a horror movie.
But
which a lot of people
when it
enjoy.
comes to what we can prove, a Cambridge University
I see more as a detective
research
thing,
paper was done on this specifically to dispel the rumors about Nazi presence in Antarctica, and they completely across the board show and prove that beyond 1939, that one little excursion by Nazi Germany, they had no presence in Antarctica. Sorry to be a buzzkill.
But let's focus on some weirdness going on in Antarctica right now. Scientists have recently discovered some bizarre cosmic rays coming from deep under the ice. High-energy particles, whose origin is usually outer space, have been detected coming from deep under Antarctica. And this is bizarre, because this is the first time these rays have been found coming from Earth.
Go ahead.
Well, they're obviously meteors that landed and then were covered with so much ice that it kept us from tracking their emissions. And now that the ice has melted as much as it has, they're obviously meteorites that crashed. And now we can detect their emissions because there's less ice.
Interesting theory.
And that's just off the cuff. Just off the cuff. I want to defend myself in advance if I'm wrong.
As opposed to Earth. Also, scientists have recently discovered a very large mystery object under the ice that's causing a gravitational anomaly. Now, some people say it's probably just an asteroid, like the one that killed off the dinosaurs.
But, conspiracy theorists are going to say, oh, it's evidence of an underground alien Nazi base. So Antarctica really is the perfect storm of conspiracy theories. Like, there's this hot
That
mess
is a
combo
good
Yeah, because it's so tough to go
aliens,
there,
UFOs,
check things out.
Nazis, like, all thrown together. And conspiracy theories to this day are still holding on to the weirdness. If you had to sum up that hypothesis that people have, is something weird going on in Antarctica, Nick?
Well, there's no doubt that Antarctica is the great unexplored continent. I mean, it's so inhospitable. The toehold that we have there with a few scientific research bases is tiny. It is largely unexplored, and we really don't know what's down there. If there's something down here, if the climate is changing and warming and the ice is melting, there is something mysterious down there under the ice, then maybe we'll find out sooner rather than later. Maybe things are thawing out. And
my thoughts
whatever
exactly
is down there, whatever these magnetic anomalies are, for example, we'll know one way or the other. Look, maybe it's just a meteor.
If we're still here.
If that's what it is, fine, then we'll know. But if it's something else, bring it on.
Dun dun dun. And I promise I have not watched this episode before.
Yeah, that was good. So yeah, interesting episode. A little bit boring because it was mostly focusing on rumors and not much in the way of evidence.
But our next show,
yeah,
you're gonna want to listen to our next show, The Big Reveal.
Yeah, but before we go there, I want to show you something I found from the U.S. National Archives, which is a channel on YouTube. This is from the 1960s. And it's entitled Army Building a Flying Saucer. They call it the Avrocar.
Avrocar?
Yeah. So my question is, why were they trying to build this? Why?
So is it a hovering car?
For operation within 400 feet of the ground,
it is.
over
Cool.
terrain of not more than 10,000 feet altitude, at level flight speeds up to 225 knots. When the basic design criteria for the vehicle were established, construction of a full-scale wooden mock-up was started. Expels air through ducts formed by the ribs and skins to a nozzle at the wing periphery for propulsion and control.
So it's a flying saucer car that hovers, but they're using a big turbofan in order to make this happen.
Yes.
But still, it just seems weird to me that we would spend all this time, effort, money, energy into developing this thing that's not supposed to fly. I mean, there's no reason for it to. I don't know why they would need this, but it seems to me like they're trying to copy something they've seen that they want to duplicate. They're trying to unengineer something, or would they build this just on rumors of flying saucers? No, they would build this if they had something similar, or if they saw something.
Did it end up working? Obviously not, because here we are a lot of years later, and I've never seen one.
Yeah, exactly. I think they do some test flights here, and they're pretty lame.
I really want a hover car, though.
I know.
That would be so nice.
They're pretty lame looking. Let's see if... Yeah, here they are.
Successful completion of ground tests will enable flight testing to commence and provide information required for development of the Avrocar.
All right, here, I'll show you a test flight of this thing. I thought it was in this video.
It's very cool looking.
Yeah, it's basically...
But still has jet engines on it,
No, it has one big turbofan in the middle.
What are those two things?
That's cockpits. That's where the pilots sit. Yeah, it's weird.
Two pilots?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Here, let me show you a test flight.
All right.
It's just kind of
It basically looks like a UFO, except for it looks like a man-made UFO.
Exactly.
Like I say, you can see the rivets in the metal.
IBM 650.
I'm going to mute it here so we can just look at the...
those old IBM computers. It's the coolest thing ever.
Here it is tethered up, and it's trying to fly.
It's lifting. Oh, no, it's not. Oh, yes, it is. Oh, no, it's not. You know what it reminds me of? Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down.
Why would you be investing so much into this? It's just ridiculous.
That was pretty funny.
It's funny.
As it tries to get off the ground, so then they build this huge structure to hold it up off the ground, so maybe it can actually fly if it's already in the air instead of trying to get off those little wheels.
This is 1959 and 1960.
Okay, now we got one that looks even cooler.
Now I think the skin is kind of off here.
Oh, yeah.
They're trying to improve it. See, now they got it untethered. Now it's flying on its own,
it's kind of. It still has the wheels. Can you imagine if you're going around the whole time you're going any direction? How sick is that going to make you?
And what's that supposed to do? Is it supposed to carry ordnance, like bombs and things?
I can't even handle a cruise ship. Okay, there's no way I could fly to Europe in that thing.
I just don't know what...
They'd have to sedate me.
What role is this supposed to play in the military's Air Force?
It's cute.
It's very cute. And they really are trying hard to get this sucker to work.
Yeah. You ought to post the link to these in case people want to watch them. Because they're kind of funny. So can you post the link for people if they want to?
So now they're actually...
here it goes.
They've got it stabilized enough so 3-4 feet off the ground they can actually make this go around the tarmac.
Little teeny wheels, and it's not spinning anymore.
No, they got it stabilized.
So here it goes, and let's see how long it lasts. Oop, 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 that's it. And they chose a day when it was icy so it could skate across the ice.
They're building it in Canada for whatever reason.
Oh, boy.
We built a flying saucer. Yay!
Yeah, which can hardly get off the road and has these 3 little cheesy wheels.
Yeah.
I wonder if the wheels can retract. Better not. You might need them. Uh-oh, there's a skunk in the road. That's going to affect this craft because it's not flying very high.
Yeah, it's not doing well at all. I mean, it can take you couple hundred feet. But
well, it's just... If you want an amusing, you got to figure, how many billions of dollars their government
millions at
used.
least,
millions. Well, okay, this was back in the 1950s,
60s, before we started the space race. But I can see why they abandoned this. I'm surprised they even went as far as they did with it.
Well, and what did they do with it?
Why? And that's my big question.
Did they bury it in Antarctica, and now that's why part of it's sticking out?
Hey, we can start rumors too, man. Let's start a rumor. Oh, too funny, though.
Okay. Well, hey, thanks for listening. This has been a fun one, even though, a
little bit on the boring side. We talked about rumors, Nazi rumors.
Yeah, but this whole... these things at the end that we watched, guys, I highly encourage you, if you want to laugh, check them out.
The U.S. trying to build a UFO. Priceless. All right, this has been the JoJo and Joe Show, coming to you live and direct from the Two Joes podcasting studio. I hope you enjoyed this episode and hope to see you back here again very soon.
JoJo out.